guys, it's Penguin here, and welcome back to another gold making video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a step away from current content Dragonflight, and we're going to be focusing on how you can start making a ton of easy gold with old world professions. Now, this video is really perfect for anybody who, let's say, wants to get into old world, but they're a little bit intimidated because there's so many options. Or maybe you're somebody who does have Dragonflight, but you're just not very interested in Dragonflight professions due to the profession revamp. Or maybe you just don't even have Dragonflight to begin with. Whatever situation it is, this is going to be the video for you. Additionally, in this video, we're going to be doing something slightly different. I'm going to be walking you through exactly each step. So I'm going to be leveling my profession with you, finding out what items to sell, creating a TSM profile from scratch, and we're going to start putting stuff on the auction house. So if you follow these exact steps with me, hopefully in the next 24 hours, you have just earned your first little bit of gold, and you can start becoming the gold maker you want to be. But without further ado, we are going to dive right in. Now, full heads up, if you guys want to skip right to the step-by-step tutorial, feel free to use the timestamps below or on the timeline, but I'm going to talk about a little bit of a disclaimer for just 1 second. I highly recommend that you listen, but I understand if you want to get to the tutorial. So I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started. And so, just a quick overview, in today's video, like I said, we're going to be starting from scratch, and to make this as simple as possible, we're going to be leveling vanilla tailoring. The main reason why I chose this profession and this expansion is because it's very cheap for beginners, so even if you just have 10k or maybe even 5k to your name, you can get started. Secondly, there's a lot of good options that we can start crafting right when we level up the profession, which is exactly what we're going to be doing, but this also comes with a pretty heavy disclaimer. Like all sort of gold making videos, you're watching this video right now, and let's say 100 other people are as well, and let's say you guys all decide to do this with me. We go out and we level up vanilla tailoring, and I craft a blue t-shirt, and so you and the 100 other people also go out and craft that blue t-shirt. That is awesome because we're all going to make gold, but 100 people just got into the market for this one single item. Thankfully, a lot of these items are server specific, meaning those 100 people could be on a completely different region or completely different server, so that doesn't necessarily matter, but it's inevitable with these videos, there's going to likely be a lot more competition in what I'm talking about, but that's completely okay. Really, the goal of this video is just to show you kind of my process in leveling a new expansion and to kind of give you my thoughts and tips if you want to do this with a different profession. So let's say vanilla tailoring is not super successful on your server for whatever reason, feel free to take these steps and apply it to either a different profession or a different expansion. If you don't like vanilla tailoring, maybe try cataclysm tailoring or legion tailoring, or maybe you go a different direction and you do vanilla blacksmithing. There are so many different combinations that you can do, so pick something that looks interesting and don't be afraid to try something else. Also, I'll have a playlist list down below that has a lot of recommendations, so if you're kind of struggling a little bit, that can help you out. But that's enough talking. I kind of just wanted to mention that at the start rather than the end, and let's actually get into this tutorial. And so what I've done, I am just quickly on an alt. As you can see, I'm level 60, and I do have tailoring, but I'm level 25 in Dragon Isles tailoring, and I'm level 1 in normal tailoring. So I'm basically starting from scratch. Additionally, just to kind of prove my point and show you how simple this is, I'm going to get rid of my extra gold. So I'm only going to give myself 10k. We move it over, there we go. So we're pretty much starting from scratch. I only have level 1 vanilla tailoring, and I have 10,000 gold to my name. So once you're here, I highly recommend going to the website wow-professions.com. This will be in the description down below. Go over to profession leveling and find the expansion and the profession that you're leveling up. In our case, this is vanilla tailoring, so I have that guide pulled up right now. Of course, you need to pick up the actual profession, so make sure you do that first, but then you can go and look at the material list and kind of get a rough idea at how much this is going to cost. So what we're going to do is go on to the auction house. You can of course go to the physical auction house since you likely don't have a Bruto, and we're going to buy our items. So for vanilla tailoring, it says we need about 115 linen cloth. If I can spell it correctly, there we go. Now it is approximate because some of this deals with, you know, RNG. So just in case, I'm gonna up it and buy 130. You definitely don't have to do this, but just to be safe, we also need some wool cloth. It says 95, I'll just buy 100. And I'm gonna go ahead and buy all of these other materials. And alright, after buying everything, and you'll see that I actually bought quite a bit extra. For example, I only needed 70 mage weave, but I decided to buy 100, and that cost me 30 gold. So far, we're doing pretty well. After that, you really just want to follow whatever tutorial this website lists to level up your profession. In this case, we're using bandages for tailoring, so I'm going to go over to the bandage trainer, which is over here. Once again, it's in the guide, and we're going to get to leveling. So the first thing we have to do is craft 55 of the linen badges, and here we go. So I'm probably either going to speed this up or skip through it, whatever it is, but I'll be back once my tailoring is completely leveled up. But for the sake of ease, we'll put up a timer to see how long this takes me. Alright everybody, we are about to hit 300. We just have a few more crafts to go. We'll queue that up right now. Beautiful, and as you can see, that leveling process took us a little bit over 10 minutes. I did have to reload during the first craft, so probably closer to 12 minutes or so, but once again, that is super easy to do. And another quick thing that I just wanted to throw in here, I did not mean to scare you guys with the disclaimer. If I did, even if a lot of people see this video, I do highly recommend vanilla tailoring, mainly because there is so much diversity in this expansion, and let's face it, let's say people start getting into this market, a lot of gold makers forget about items. So, you know, there might be a rush of people into the market for the first week or two once this video comes out, if people decide to do it, but, you know, if people were definitely involved with Dragonflight or other gold making, people will probably forget to restock or stuff like that. Or, you know, it might not perform well on their servers or things like that. Or who knows, maybe even though there is competition, it still performs super well on your server. So I do still highly recommend giving this a try, but enough talking, we have officially hit 300 and we can move on to the next step. So because we're leveling with bandages, we do actually have to go and buy all of our recipes. So that can be a little bit expensive to do. As you can see, we're down to 9.6 thousand gold because we had to buy those bandage recipes. But let's go over to the tailoring trainer. Oops, went a little bit too far. Here we go. And now what you can do, if you're picky, you know, it's going to want us to learn Cataclysm, that's fine. Now, if you're picky, you can go through here and only learn certain things, but I assume we're going to have pretty much plenty of gold, so I'm going to go through here and just hit train for everything. Once again, it comes down to how much gold you have, but we're going to go ahead and learn all of these. And there we go. It got a little bit expensive towards the end, but we've only still spent a little over, you know, 1,300 gold or so, and we are good to go. So now this is where it comes down to complete personal preference, right? Let's say you have a pre-built TSM profile that you got off the internet, feel free to use that, but I'm going to dive into kind of how to figure out what items you should be selling. Also, feel free to sell these bandages, vendor them, you know, I have leftover materials I will likely use for crafting later, but feel free to do whatever you want with, you know, your excess product. But what we have started is a brand new TSM profile. I have completely wiped our group, so we're going to be starting from scratch, but really what we're going to be focusing on is actually the crafting menu. So as you can see, now we have a ton of crafts to look to. And we're really going to be paying attention to the sale rate. To those who are unfamiliar with sale rate, if you look at an item, you kind of see two numbers. You see region sale rate, which is going to be a decimal, and then you see your region average daily sold. Now, region average daily sold is pretty important when you're looking at like materials or mass bought items like potions, food, etc. But for transmog, which is kind of what we're focusing on because this is tailoring, your sale rate is really important. Sale rate basically is the percentage of items that sell per day per region or per realm, depending on if it's a server specific item or a region wide item. In our case, if it's like an armor piece, it's going to be per realm. And so my personal general rule is anything that is 0.02 and higher generally has a decent rate of selling. I kind of avoid anything that is below 0.02. For example, if we take a look right here, right, there is some pretty good profit, but it's 0.004. That's definitely going to be a slow seller compared to something like this one, which is 0.12, right? That is definitely a big difference, but this once again comes down to personal preference. Maybe you think 0.02 is still way too low, especially for like t-shirts or something, so you want to do 0.05, you're going to have to pick whatever margin is okay with you. Secondly, we also want to look at profit. For example, this t-shirt right now, the red linen shirt, has a 0.15, which is actually a very high sale rate, but it's making me 1 gold profit. Granted, the crafting cost is 24 silver, but still, you know, is it worth my time? Maybe not, maybe it is, depending on you. It really comes down to, you know, your server prices, competition, and how much gold you have. If you truly only have a few thousand gold to your name, you're likely going to be okay with a smaller profit, but if you have, you know, 1,000,000 gold, you probably are going to be a little bit more greedy, and that's perfectly fine. But speaking out of experience with vanilla tailoring, t-shirts are going to be your best friend. For the sake of this, you know, there are some pretty good sale rates, but profits are pretty low, so I'm just going to skip on bandages. And now what I'm going to do is go through this list, and everything that I think is interesting, I'm going to add to queue. So I'm not going to do this whole list just for the sake of time, but let's walk through some of these, for example. So we can check, you know, the linen shirt has a good sale rate. I like it. 23 gold profit. You know what? I'll take it, and I'm going to add it to queue. This one, 200 gold profit. Definitely. I'm going to skip the 1 gold, move on here. And oops, I got an error. That's just because I haven't updated my add-ons. So we're going to do a quick reload. That's generally my fault, not necessarily TSM's. But it's okay. We can just go back to where we were. All right. And whatever, we just keep going. So we're going to queue the green shirt. I'm going to skip over this one, the red shirt, this one. Okay, so I like those shirts. Perfect. We can move back here to cloaks. Now, once again, we're kind of getting into those lower sale rates. I'm okay with anything above 0.02. So linen, pretty good. This one, pretty good, pretty good. This has a 480 gold profit, but it's kind of low. Person gonna skip it. I'm gonna skip this one too. Add this to queue. Once again, if you're okay with slow sellers and there's high profit, why not craft it, right? At the worst, it's gonna be a 40 gold crafting cost. It might be worth it to you. We're gonna move on to boots, 0.02. I like it. And as you can see, this right here is just kind of a slow process. So you can go through here, queue whatever you want. Once again, we're having some pretty good profit. Granted, I'm on a medium pop server, so my margins are pretty high, but we're just gonna go through here and see what we got. Okay, and you know, you can keep going. Like these caught my eye, so we can add these. There we go. Do a quick scroll. That caught my eye. Okay, that caught my eye. Whatever, you know, there's so many good items here, and just go down the list and figure out what you want to craft. For example, you know, this 700 gold profit on my server, 40 gold crafting cost, pretty decent sale rate. That is pretty awesome. This one's a 0.08, 400, a 77 silver crafting cost, pretty awesome, etc. There's so many options here, so just go through here and add everything you want to queue. After that, you're going to have a big list of items depending on how profitable things are and how strict you are, and we're going to go ahead and craft them. If you're unfamiliar with TSM Gathering, what I highly recommend is removing this right here and setting up your settings like this. If you want more information, I highly recommend checking out my TSM crafting guide. Kind of explains this all, but this is kind of my ideal setup. You can remove guild bank if you want, that's kind of more personal preference, but we're going to select our crafter, in this case here, and it's going to tell me exactly what I need to buy. In our case, we can open up the task list, kind of close all the extra stuff, and we can go and buy these vendor items first. We should be able to buy it from this guy. We need to open it up via TSM. We can hit buy from vendor, and it's going to buy everything that we need, and that gets marked off our list. Beautiful. Up next, it's telling me to get stuff from alts. It's up to you if you want to log out and get stuff from alts. In my case, I'm just going to kind of buy it from the auction house. Once again, kind of a quick tutorial. If you guys do have something that you need to buy, you can open up TSM, go to browse, and then if you can actually hit scan all, and it'll show you exactly what you need. So you can check the price to make sure it's not insanely inflated, and then we can buy what we need. There we go. We also need some bolt of wool and cloth. What auction house crafting does, it allows you to choose to either buy the final product, which is the bolt, or you can buy the product to craft the final product if it's cheaper. So it kind of lets you compare. In our case, you know, it's silvers at this point. Actually, it's not even profitable to craft bolts, so we're just going to buy the bolts themselves. We need 19. Beautiful. And the rest of this is saying that I should get it from alts, but I'm just gonna go ahead and actually buy this on the auction house because I'm lazy, but I'm gonna get all these materials and I will be right back. Alrighty, we're kind of doing the final step where we're crafting items. Now, once again, this comes down to personal preference. I'm crafting everything that TSM tells me to for the sake of this video to just kind of show you the process, but you can take another look at this stuff and see if you want to save time. For example, it wants us to craft, you know, 12 bolts of mage wave, and yes, it's profitable to craft, but I'm saving 36 silver. So is 36 silver really worth, you know, the few extra minutes of crafting? That's just an answer that you have to answer for yourself, right? So if you don't like, you know, what TSM is recommending, feel free to just skip it and buy it off the auction house. Especially if you have pretty big margins, you don't have to worry about it that much. But just because, you know, we're going through exactly what TSM says, we're gonna save the few pennies and we're gonna craft everything that we need. Alright, the last thing we need is 2 more bolts of silk cloth. And alright, now we are good to go. If we want to quickly do a gold check, oops, wrong button, we are currently at 8.7, so still we are doing pretty well. And for the sake of inventory space, what I kind of like to do is free up my top space just to kind of see what I'm crafting. And we can get to crafting our cube. So now all we have to do is click here and hit craft next, or use a macro, and we're going to go through the list of items. This process that we're doing right now, I know it's a bit tedious, but trust me, we're only going to do this once. So depending on how many items you have in queue, might be a little bit more difficult than others, but we are quickly going to go through this and I'll be back soon. Actually, before I speed this part up, I know we already started crafting things, but to those who don't know, if you actually hover over this item, it will show you your estimations. So based on the 20 items I still have in queue, my crafting cost is actually 14 gold in total. We can round it to 15. My estimated profit is 6,500, and my estimated time of clicking craft next is 40 seconds. Keep in mind that estimated time doesn't include, you know, getting materials. So that, of course, is going to add in some extra time, but of pure final product crafting, It's going to cost us about 40 seconds. And final one. Boom. There we go. We have everything crafted. Now you're probably thinking, Penguin, that took way too long. I really don't want to do this every single week or every single day. Can we speed up this process? And yes, that's exactly what we're going to do. So with everything that you have crafted now, it's probably safe to say that you're going to want to craft these again, especially if it sells. So this is where we're going to set up our TSM groups. So you can go into our TSM, create a fresh new profile if you need to under settings, it's up to you, and we can start fresh at a blank slate. This, yet again, like most things, comes down to personal preference. Feel free to organize your groups however you want. Traditionally, I kind of like setting up groups for each profession. So in case, for this, it would be tailoring. And you can break this down to however you'd like. If you want to throw every single tailoring item into one group, go for it. If you like to break this down and, we crafted bandages, so you can make a bandage group. We crafted t-shirts, we crafted capes, we crafted pants. Break it down to whatever you'd like. Some people like to do it by gold value. So you could have like 500 plus gold. You could have it set to like 1,000 plus gold. Really just comes down to personal preference. In this video, just because we have 30 items, I'm going to keep it very simple by putting it all under tailoring as one big group. So what we're going to want to do is, set up what sort of structure you want. And then we're going to go over and because we're dealing with transmog, we're going to turn our show ungrouped items as base item. What this does is it basically ignores any sort of special stats or item level differences that your items have, because at the end of the day, that sort of stuff doesn't matter, because this is all for purely transmog. If you're crafting, specific stat items that you want to sell higher because of their stat, you're going to want to use something like item level or specific item, depending on what you're crafting. But to keep it simple, transmog, we're keeping it as base item, and you want to just select everything that you have in your inventory. If you are smart about it and you crafted a bunch of items, I highly recommend just shoving everything else in your bank. If you do that and you only have crafted items in your inventory, you can just hit the group all button and everything will be selected. But in our case, I'm not that smart, so we're going to have to go through here and manually select. But thankfully, it's not that many items. Just for the sake of this video, I'm skipping the bandages, but feel free to do whatever you want with those items. Okay, I think that is everything. I'm actually just going to go ahead to free up some space. I'm actually going to vendor all of these bandages. Okay, so now we have everything grouped. And we're going to use this to our advantage so we can start selling things and we can also start crafting things. So we can go to operations and let's first set up a crafting operation. We can hit craft new. Once again, you can get as detailed as you want. You can have a separate operation for each type of item, but just because we're broadly doing this for the sake of time, we'll just call this tailoring. And once again, this kind of comes down to your personal preference. You probably think I'm crazy because I've said personal preference so many times in this video, but it's important to get that right because at the end of the day, there's really no right or wrong answer. But what I want to do now is kind of ask you some rhetorical questions. So first, think to yourself, how many items do you want to keep in stock at once? Think about t-shirts. Do you want only one t-shirt and you restock after every single sold? Maybe you want to keep 3 t-shirts, maybe they sell super fast and you want to keep 5. It's up to you, but I kind of like the 3 number. So basically, at once, I want to have a maximum of 3 t-shirts, 3 pants, 3 capes, etc. Then you want to ask yourself, okay, when should I restock? Do you want to restock after you miss a single t-shirt? If so, you want to set that to 1. But maybe you're like, okay, I want to stock 3, but I don't want to restock until I have 1 left to kind of give me a barrier. You could set this to 2. Or, let's say you want 10 t-shirts max, but you don't want to restock until you're missing 5. You can kind of set it like that. Hopefully that makes sense. Once again, I have way more detailed TSM videos if you need a little bit more help. But to keep this simple, we're going to do 3 and 1. Then you're going to want to set yourself a min profit. And this is where it can kind of get tricky depending on your profession. Generally, what I always recommend is something that's a percentage of crafting. So if we do 15% crafting, that means we're making 15% profit on our item, which is generally pretty good. However, for this specific scenario, we are dealing with some pretty low cost items. For example, this t-shirt right here has a crafting cost of 24 silver. So 15% profit off of 24 silver is a very, very small number. But at the end of the day, that is still 15% profit, so feel free to leave it like this. Maybe you want to be a little bit more pricier, so you want to set it to 20%. That's perfectly fine as well. Something else to consider is you can also do a flat rate gold amount. So let's say no matter what the crafting cost is, you always want to make 100 gold profit. You can slap in just 100 gold. So no matter what, it has to make at least 100 gold profit for you to craft it. Additionally, you can combine these two. So something called a max function allows you to pick, max of 2 items. So we can say I want it to either be 100 gold profit, or I want it to be the 20% crafting, and it's going to pick whatever's more. So for example, 20% crafting on 24 silver is definitely less than 100 gold, so this item is not going to restock because it's not meeting the max 100 gold. So if you want to be a little bit more picky, you can do it like this. Once again, keeping it simple, so I'm doing it like this, but just letting you know, in my personal profile with dealing with t-shirts, I do use a max function. But once again, up to you. Then lastly, the final thing you need to do is just assign it to a group. In our case, it's tailoring. We're going to add it, and boom, crafting is complete. Next up, we want auctioning, and since we've already kind of discussed crafting, this is going to make our life very, very easy. We'll call this once again tailoring for fun. Go over to posting, and I always recommend that you post for 12 hours. The reason why I say this is, especially if you're on a high pop server, you're likely going to get undercut, and you're likely going to get undercut in a few hours, technically maybe even a few minutes, so there's really no point in posting for 24 or 48 hours, just because it's going to take a lot of your potential sales away. However, I understand that not everybody focuses on gold making, or maybe you can't play every single day, so feel free to adjust this. If you only want to post once a day when you log on before work, or when you log on after work, maybe you change it to 24. Maybe you really don't want to deal with these items and you change it to 48. Up to you, but if you can, I highly recommend try posting every 12 hours if possible. Secondly, you have your post cap, which is how many are going to be posted at a time on the auction house. I like to keep this at either 1 or 2, depending on what I'm selling. In this case, why not? I set it to 2. I don't recommend, spamming 5 of the same exact t-shirt on the auction house at the same time, unless you know you're going to get 5 sales in one day, because if you start cluttering the market, it's going to show as oversaturated, which could actually pull down the price. So I would keep it at either 1 or 2, especially for transmog. Then we have our minimum and maximum and normal price. Default looks very scary, but don't worry, just get rid of all of that and think back to your crafting operation. What you're going to want to do is do 100% plus whatever your percentage was. So let's say, going back to mine, it was 20% profit, so my minimum price is going to be 120% crafting. Just add 100% to that. Let's say you did a flat rate. Let's say you need 100 gold profit, right? You would do 100% crafting because you want to make sure crafting cost is covered, plus that 100 gold, and that will make sure that you are making that 100 gold profit. And of course, you can do a max in here too, so if you really wanted to, you could do a max of, that 100 gold profit, plus the 100% crafting, whatever sort of situation you want. Now, there are things that you can do to make sure you're taking into account fees, stuff like that, but I'm just keeping it super simple, and I'm going to keep it at 120% crafting. Then you have your maximum and normal price, and this is up to you. I like to shoot high for the stars, especially on items like this that are so cheap, so I'm going to say I am okay with 10 times my crafting cost. You can really, put this however you like, but I'm going to say 10 times my crafting. And for my normal price, let's say it's 5 times crafting. As you can see, you can put this many different ways. For consistency, I'll change it to that. But there we go. Now we have a simple operation set up. Once again, add this to our group, and now we are officially all set up, ready to go. To show this in action, every single time you want to go to restock, all you need to do is go over to restock groups, select the groups you want to restock, in this case it's tailoring, hit restock, and based on your parameters, everything is going to show up. Now you'll notice, some of these are only restocking 1 or 2. It's because it's counting my, external auction house toon that actually has this stuff. So that's why there's different numbers. So kind of ignore that, but if we were to quickly craft these 26 items, I have a 14,000 gold estimated profit. Some things might be inflated, but still, with 120 gold crafting cost, even if it was half of that, that's still awesome. But finally, we've made it to the final section of the video, and it comes down to posting. One final tip with TSM posting: if you go into your TSM settings, and you go under macros, you can create yourself a macro that uses your mouse scroll wheel, which is going to save you a lot of time. Personally, I have it set to auctioning, crafting, and destroying. I can move my mouse wheel up or down, and I hold control to make it happen. Feel free to add, whatever sort of setup you want, but select whatever you want, and then you can hit update existing macro, and this will now exist. So if we go into if we go into our auction house and we select on our group, make sure that you deselect base group. Base group is basically everything ungrouped in the game, meaning it will just start selling random stuff in your inventory, which you definitely don't want. So deselect base group, select whatever groups that you have, and just hit run post scan, and it's going to, put in our items based on our percentages. Now, a common theme that you will notice is because I set my max price so low, everything is above max price, which is fine, but we're selling ourselves short, because if something's selling for 500 gold, but my max is only 2 gold, that's definitely not very good. So we can actually go back and fix this. Now, fair warning, if you're not doing vanilla tailoring, you're probably never going to run into this issue. This is just because of margins are so high, because crafting costs are so low. So don't feel like you have to do this for every single group. We're just going to kind of cheat our way for the sake of this specific thing. That's why I like breaking things down, right? I would never want to merge these with like expensive transmog, because you're going to want very different operations. But what we can do is you can either go in here and literally, up this value, right? You can do 50 times crafting if you want, just for the fun of it. We can try that out. And as you can see, that solves like a few things, but even 50 times isn't solving our issue. So what we could do to just make sure we are okay, I'm going to set this back to 10. I'm going to add in that max clause that I mentioned earlier, and my max is just going to be set to 5,500 gold. So it's either going to be posted max price at 5,500 or 10 times crafting cost. So if we go here now, as you can see, there is no issues with posting. We're undercutting the competition just like normal, and this is a lot better. Technically, I could have posted with the old settings, but I'm just wasting and, bringing the market down for no reason, because there's so much gold on the table. But because we have that macro ready to go, make sure you have your mouse somewhere hovering outside of any window, hold down your modifier, in my case it's Control, and start scrolling, and it will start going through and posting all of your items. And there we go. Right now, my recording has hit 56 minutes, so in just an hour, we have a very basic setup, and this is a process that definitely you only have to do once, because you only need to level up that expansion once, you only need to kind of create your group once, and then this process becomes super easy. If you go over to my auctions, I have 31 items posted for about 12.5 thousand gold. Now, of course, because I'm doing this live right here, I don't have any immediate sales, but I'll throw some screenshots of my screen of these items actually selling. I have to admit, kind of going back to the disclaimer, I'm one of the people that have a very hard time at remembering to restock everything, so I would have way more sales if I actually consistently restocked, but I have no issues selling these items. And remember, these are just trainer learned items from one expansion. If you happen to be on a server where t-shirts are worthless, right? Let's say you're on a high pop server with a lot of competition and your prices don't look like this, try out a different expansion, try out a different profession. There are so many items out there. You know, one of my favorites for tailoring, I talk about bags, and in this video, we restocked no bags. There's so many materials and items from engineering that do well, so many items from blacksmithing. You can look into like flipping, you know, smelting ores if you really want to. So much high-end transmog from vendors as well. Old World expands a ton, but hopefully, if you're intimidated to make gold, this video can actually show you step by step to get it started. And like I said, to really sum up and show you how easy it is to get started, we are an hour in, so, you know, let's just say it takes an hour for you to get started, way less because you're not recording a video, but it took me an hour. I spent about 1,300 gold, and now I have 12.5 thousand gold on the auction house, and that's only from 30 items that I selected. If I actually went through that entire crafting list, I would have so much more. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I know this video is slightly different, but I really just want you guys to get out there and start making gold, because I truly think everybody could do it. Of course, depending on your server, of course, depending on how much time you can dedicate, your, sales are going to look different. As long as you are just progressing each day and you're having fun, that's really all that matters. Once you have your hand on vanilla tailoring, maybe you want to start branching out to other things, and you know the routine to do so. Also, if you kind of hate the TSM aspect of it, you don't necessarily need to use TSM, it just saves you a bunch of time. If the grouping and, setting up operations scares you, you can look into Reddit, Discords, and see if anybody has a group for you to spare to kind of get you started, because I know TSM can also be a little bit intimidating. But I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on this style of video. It's a little bit different, but I am super excited to make more of these if you guys like them. But once again, everybody, thank you so much, especially if you made it this far. If you did, let me know what your favorite animal is down below. I think you guys can all guess mine, but once again, thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, feel free to like the video or subscribe. Come on, you've made it this far. And as always, everybody, have a good day.